Dear seekers in the divine, today let us share the topic which discusses the very essential and the most quintessential teachings of Ramana Maharshi, one of the greatest sages of the 20th century, who spoke from experience, living that which he expressed as self, not as the body mind, but as self. Most of his teachings were through silence. Seekers used to come, go to his ashram, sit at his feet, with lots of questions in their mind. He would hardly speak. And before their questions even came out or expressed themselves, the questions used to disappear because they used to get dissolved. His quintessential teachings were through silence. Silence as the language is extremely and very strong, highly effective, Ramana Maharshi said. Because prior to silence, prior to language, prior to the spoken word is the thought, and prior to the thought is silence, because everything emerges from silence. As seekers and devotees, there are questions that arise on the spiritual path, or what one terms as spiritual path, as it were. And when those questions arise, they require some temporary answers. And when those questions are asked by seekers, trying to get some sort of a response to guide them on the spiritual path, the teachings of Ramana Maharshi are very critical, because they answer the queries through his many books that cater not only for devotees on the path of devotion, but also for keen spiritual aspirants, seekers on the path of inquiry. The quintessential teachings for the seekers is the path of inquiry, asking, who am I? But not, as Ramana Maharshi said, as a mantra, repeating who am I, but using that inquiry process to find out who the seeker is. Who is it who is trying to seek? The seeking by the seeker through the process of the mind as they say, is like the thief who acts like a policeman trying to catch the thief. That is not the solution, because the mind will always play tricks and never try to catch itself. So then what is this so-called process of inquiry? Because the mind itself is using itself to find what is beyond itself. So the process of this inquiry is to use the mind, because that is the only instrumentality that the individual has within is his or her capacity to utilize. So the mind itself is a tool that expresses itself outwardly, and it always going outwards, because that is the only way it can survive. When it creates, the thought process creates the I and the other, duality arises, duality comes about, because there's always I and then the object, the subject and the object. And hence the mind is always outgoing, objectifying other things, jumping from object to object, fleeting around like a butterfly, fickle-minded all the time, going up and down and up and down. Momentary joy, momentary sadness, suffering and enjoyment. This continues on. So when the mind is going outward, how can that mind, same mind, be used in the process of inquiry? Because it will not try and find itself. Hence, what needs to be done is, rather than going outwards, the idea is to go inwards. When the inquiry process commences, to find out who is this I, and from where did this I arise, and to try and find the source of that I. And then when that inquiry starts and goes within, what happens is that that very outgoing mind, when it is turned inwards, it is no more termed as a mind itself, because that dissolves itself into the inquiry of searching for where that I arose from, the source. And when that inquiry goes through, that inwardness happens, the disillusion of that ego process commences. Seekers used to ask the question of Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi, where they used to say that every time I try that process of inquiry, I go in, but then the mind immediately goes outwards. I lose that track of going inwards. Ramana Maharshi advised that yes, it will happen 100 times in a day if the mind goes outwards after going inward once, after the continued practice, this process will become, the outward action will become 50 times, then reduce down to 30 times, 20 times, 10 times. There'll come a time through continued intended practice, the outgoing mind will stop, thoughts will dissolve itself, and the I, the source of that I, will reveal itself as nothing but that I, which is pure self, pure awareness. Because one is nothing other than that very self. There is nothing new that is gained. It is that false illusion, that false notion that I am this body, mind, intellect. Truth is that all there is that self, that changeless, eternal, ever aware, pure, eternal self. When that changeless represents itself as the changing in you, as you, then there is an illusory action that happens that creates the notion through the thought process that this body is I, this mind is I. It's only a notion. There is no reality to it. Even a simple process of inquiry will reveal this, that I am not this body, this mind, this intellect. But then the process should start, then who am I? Where did this I then arise from? That goes deeper and deeper and deeper, that inquiry. And then when that becomes deeper and deeper, revelation automatically happens, because one is not gaining anything new. One is already that. The changeless is the changing. The changing is the changeless. The screen and the images on the screen are one and the same. The absolute potential and the kinetic motion of the universe are no different. As Jagat Guru Adi Shankaracharya said, Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Na Paraha. Brahman is the truth. This universe is a mithya, is a phenomena in existence. But Brahman and the Jiva are not different. The changeless and the changing are not different. That is the truth. That revelation in clarity, through clarity of understanding, not just intellectual understanding, but through the process of inquiry, releases one beyond this concept of I, me, myself, to be established as that pure self which one always was, is, and always will be. Pure awareness is your true nature here and now, not in some far away time and space, but right here and now. You always have been that. Let that clarity of understanding resolve itself into abidance of the self, abidance as self, and complete absorption as self. You are that Parabrahma Tattva. You are Satchidananda Atman, ever existent, ever real, ever pure. Pure existence, pure consciousness, pure bliss. Unchanging, eternal. Thank you.